Besides the inevitable battle between Garou and Saitama, the next season of One Punch Man promises fights and plenty of surprises. In fact, this arc became the longest of the manga so far. So here's your chance to get a little taste of what's on the horizon in One Punch Man Season 3. Now let me also preface that we don't know the chapters that Season 3 will comprise of. So in my opinion, this is what episodes 1 through 12 of Season 3 will likely be about. Now, it could be shorter, could be longer, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be what we're going to be going over in this video. And that being said, I'm pretty much spoiling all of Season 3, but considering that you clicked on it, I don't really think you care about that. So let's get into it. Picking up off of the end of One Punch Man Season 2, this season is going to start with a meeting at the Hero Association, classifying Garou officially as a monster. Narinki shows up, upset that they haven't saved his son yet, but the S-Class heroes are on standby until Child Emperor can find the monster hideout. Of course, some are impatient. Amai Mask gets involved, rubbing the higher-ranked heroes the wrong way, and Puri-Puri Prisoner is allowed to retrieve the prisoners who were taken by the cat monster. Child Emperor contacts Metal Knight for backup, but he refuses to join. Meanwhile, Fubuki creates the new Blizzard group, with those chilling at Saitama's place. She's shocked that they don't know anything about what's going on with the monsters and how serious the situation is. Since they all have to recover from facing Elder Centipede, Saitama's the only one active. He's also mad that Garou hasn't hunted him yet. Unsurprisingly, Narinki hires a private company to find his son since he's tired of waiting, but they only have battle suits that make them stronger. Garou wakes up after being saved by Phoenix Man. There's a note left for him, and his memory of the events is fuzzy since he's starting to change internally. He comes across the Narinki's mercenary team, already captured and being tortured by the Monster Association. Before they can be killed, Super S uses her whip on them to control their minds. Gyoro knows Garou's hiding behind the wall and tells him telepathically. Royal Ripper is one of the monsters with the most violent tendencies, and he's given some focus for a reason. He smells Garou and forces him out. With everyone gathered, Gyoro intends for him to become an executive for their organization, so long as he can complete Orochi's test, to kill a hero and bring their head back as proof. Elsewhere, two ninjas discuss the fact that some high-level monsters were killed already. We'll come back to them. Garou leaves for his test, but Bug God and Royal Ripper follow to ensure that he goes through with it. On the surface, people who think humans stand no chance against the Monster Association start planning to let them become the rulers. Others pillage, rob, and hurt weaker people because they know society has been thrown into disarray. But Garou finds this disgusting, since they're using the cover of monsters to act a specific way. Plus, it would just make Garou a true human monster, less effective as a threat to society. He still helps out some guys when they almost get killed. Afterwards, he orders a huge steak at a restaurant, trying to replenish the blood that he lost. He also orders every other meat on the menu with salad and water, but no plans to pay for it all. Coincidentally, Saitama's there eating and realizes he forgot his wallet. A hero doing a dine and dash would look bad, but thankfully Fubuki shows up just in time for him to stick the bill on her, and he uses the excuse of chasing a dine and dasher. Before Saitama gets to Garou, the human monster comes across Terrio being bullied and steps in to scare them off. Terrio apologizes for how he acted at the shed with Gatling's group, realizing that he was protecting him, but Saitama shows up and knocks Garou out with one punch. Terrio waits for him to wake up, with the monsters who were tailing them watching too. Royal Ripper's a threat even listed in Terrio's book. Garou stands between them and Terrio, defending him again. If he won't kill Terrio, it means he's not serious about being a monster. Garou's forced to scare Terrio away and out of danger. Evidently, Gyoro sent the most violent monsters to watch him, trying to push Garou to grow the way that he did with Orochi. Elsewhere, Zombie Man follows Metal Gorilla to what he believes is the new House of Evolution. Inside, Genis explains that his experiments mean nothing compared to people who can remove their limiter naturally, like Saitama. That's why he gave up. Back to Garou. He struggles against the two bloodthirsty monsters, but holds his own. His biggest weakness is Terrio, though, who got caught by the sludge monster. This gets him beaten, and left for dead. At Saitama's house, they worry because he's been gone a while, but then he returns covered in gunk. Bang fears that he ran into Garou and killed him, but it's just monster leftovers. Fubuki shows up upset with the bag of cabbage he left at the restaurant. Genos' savior, Dr. Kuseno, shows up then to help repair him. But since they're all injured and don't know who moves so quickly, they send King to confront him. It's also the first time Saitama and Kuseno meet, despite knowing about each other. Back to the captured Terio, he's brought to their hideout. They lie about what happened with Garou, but Gyoro sees through it. River plans to torture the boy, but Gyoro warns that a scouting device is nearby, leading the heroes. Super S sends out the brainwashed mercenaries under her control. Two ninjas spar, waiting for Flashy Flash to show up, the same two who gave Sonic monster cells in Season 2. Other monsters are introduced as foreshadowing. Rhino, Vampire, and Devil Longhair. Neon also returns from the surface. Terio's put into a cell along with Waganma, Narinki's son. He tries to let him know how bad the situation is on the surface, but doesn't want to discourage Waganma and his belief that they'll be rescued. Suddenly, Garou wakes up after remembering what happened. Despite all his wounds, he stopped bleeding, and his clothes have stuck into the injuries. He's gotten more powerful again. However, at last, Child Emperor has located the monster's base, but he keeps certain heroes to join, like Genos and Bang. Oh, there's also a random hot pot battle at Saitama's place. Feeling better, Garou looks for Terio. Gyoro sends monsters to intercept since it can't tell who the intruder is. Meanwhile, King wakes up at Saitama's place and takes out the garbage. He's intercepted by the Hero Association, recruiting him for the rescue mission. Speaking of which, Narinki finally understands his team was useless and begs Second Guard to save his son. The S-Class heroes are already preparing to go. They're given transmitters and maps to get around. Back inside Monster HQ, Ripper greets Terio menacingly, planning to start his fun. The monster sent to check out the intruder didn't come back, so more are sent. Terio starts to get sliced, and Garou smashes through the wall, stopping Ripper in time. He slices his head off with just 3 fingers. Afterwards, Garou leads Terio to safety, killing anything blocking them, and even eating monsters to replenish himself. Before they're out, Terio begs Garou to save the other kid, but Garou has no attachment to Waganma. But that's also when a massive monster dog appears. Garou knows they stand no chance and tries not to provoke it, while sneaking away with Terio. But other monsters show up and trigger Rover by fighting in the corridors, forcing Garou to distract it while Terio escapes. Overgrown Rover launches a massive blast. From Saitama's place above the monster hideout, it feels like an earthquake. Garou sees his life flash before his eyes, thrown into the depths of the monster hideout. His attacks do nothing, and he falls all the way down to Gyoro's level and uses psychic abilities so they can have a chat. Saitama goes on patrol, while Garou's forced to listen. It explains how it was able to create strong monsters after trial and error, the pinnacle being Monster King Orochi. Gyoro believes Garou can even surpass him because of the levels he's reached after being so close to death. Garou doesn't want anything to do with Gyoro, and he breaks free from the psychic hold. When he's about to attack, Orochi steps in to fight Garou from below. He's pierced and crushed, but still survives. The spectating monsters become casualties, and Garou rushes to avoid faster and deadlier attacks. He somehow withstands a flurry of strikes and super high temperature blows, but can't surpass Orochi when he reveals his martial arts stance and uses multiple appendages. Even though Garou wants to invoke terror, there's no bloodlust or monster-like violence in him. With Garou now unconscious, Gyoro plans to fully brainwash him to their side. Saitama can't find anything, but hears something below the surface, lifting a manhole. Child Emperor has already counted 500 monsters in their hideout, leaving them with 60 each to cut down their numbers. But at the same time, he knows about the executives with unmatched power. As usual, Tatsumaki doesn't think any of them can beat her, and Prisoner tells the heroes to let him deal with the prisoners who escaped, so he can turn them back. Tatsumaki insists that she deal only with the boss, and they deal with the fodder. Flashy Flash starts to pick a fight with her, with Child Emperor trying to keep it peaceful. But then Amai Mask steps in, adding more tension to the room. He wants to be in charge of the team, which only rubs the higher level heroes the wrong way even more. Flashy provokes him, almost starting a fight. Only once King arrives do they finally settle down and listen. Another misunderstanding happens, and the heroes are impressed by the imaginary feats that King accomplished. We switch to Sekigahara and Sitch talking about the heroes that will be protecting the surface while the S-Class are gone. Sekigahara will go himself to ensure it goes smoothly and to get credit. Bang and his brother show up to replace his phone and to get info on Garou, but Sitch is still hiding the mission from him. King runs out of the room but ends up in front of Bang. King's pressured into telling him what's going on. It works out for him since he doesn't want to go alone and wants Genos and Saitama to come along too, secretly. Fubuki heads to Saitama's home, upset that she's been cut out because of her sister. Genos is also on his way with new upgrades, but they're fully offensive and can't be used for long. Bang and Bomb arrive too. When King gets there, they're all waiting, but no sign of Saitama. King wants to wait for him, but Genos knows the team's also expecting his help. Genos stays in the apartment to wait. The new Fubuki group leaves with King frightened to death. Again, Saitama's now in the monster base, walking around peacefully. Both teams of heroes leave at the same time for City Z. King's of course missing because he ran off somewhere else. A group of monsters is there to meet him, and an ambush is waiting for the B team. Tatsumaki just destroys the monsters and the buildings, not even caring about the heroes below. Instead of apologizing, they tell the second team to get out of the way, with Amai Mask chiming in. Sekigahara's impressed but not surprised by how well the surface team is doing. This means he can be worry-free about the S-Class heroes going down below. Even Amai Mask and Super Ally Darkshine have compliments to give them. More and more monsters show up, but they're no match for Atomic Samurai. He kills the fodder with a toothpick and Rhino Wrestler in seconds. Child Emperor busies himself with destroying Gyoro's spying device. Likewise, Gyoro summons the executives to a meeting. The S-Class moves underground, with a hero helping get Pig God into his entrance. The scared monsters rush back to the hideout, but Gyoro kills them for being of no use, feeding them to Orochi. After finishing off some nobodies, Flashy Flash is confronted by the two ninja monsters at last. They then take their monsterized forms when Flashy isn't struggling enough for their taste. Even though he has trouble at first, and despite facing two senior ninjas from his village, he slashes them with his ultimate move, Flashy Slash. He cuts them in half at the same time. As they lay dying, upset at their failure, Flashy lets them know that it's because they stopped training that they lost, relying too much on external power. Afterwards, he realizes he lost his map and the communicator that Child Emperor gave him. We switch to Child Emperor, keeping track of the other heroes and looking for the kidnapped son. Monsters try to sneak up on him, but his tech makes quick work of them without even needing to look back. He finds the dismantled robot body created by Metal Knight. He eats some candy to feed his mind sugar, and a bird monster shows up. It's Phoenix Man, the one who brought Garou to the hideout originally. Child Emperor takes it down with a new slew of robotic things from his backpack and continues his search. He throws a frog device towards Waganma's cell, protecting him from a poisonous gas. Then he saws through the cell and is about to let him out when the sludge monster shows up again. When weapons don't work, he takes Waganma and flees. As they escape, Child Emperor sends a remote vehicle to check on enemies. They come across a machine god robot, but even Emperor's machine disabling device isn't enough to stop it. Child Emperor has no choice but to use a bunch of his gadgets just to make it through the fight, including underdog robots and pencil missiles. He rushes off with Waganma and finds the Phoenix Man corpse, only for him to do exactly as his namesake, come back to life. And now he's stronger, the same way Garou and Orochi evolved through near-death experiences. The robot was nothing compared to what he's facing now. Child Emperor quickly hides Waganma in a heat-resistant shield and faces the bird. When all his defenses are taken down, Child Emperor loses his cool momentarily and relies on the secret weapon he planted in the hideout beforehand, Brave Giant. All the pieces come together, making a mech for him to control from inside. Even the surface team can feel the shifting of the parts. But Child only has a few minutes to use his mech. In the midst of the hard battle, Phoenix brings Child Emperor into a special dimension, trying to relate with him and get him to his side. But Child Emperor snaps out of it because of Phoenix's horrible name suggestion and keeps fighting. When the heat starts getting through the mech, he worries it won't be able to last long enough. And his mind drifts to the way that he was confused for a moment, speaking with Phoenix, if there might be some truth to what he said. He may feel stressed and unappreciated deep down. At the same time, Saitama is crushing any monster he encounters, dirtying his costume, but then a rush of water drags him away. Child Emperor uses it to lower the temperature around him. Saitama slides all the way to him, distracting him enough for Phoenix Man to escape in a penguin suit. Waganma's fine though, but pukey. He doesn't want to share his safe spot with Saitama. And when rubble lands on his defense system and still injures him, Saitama worries for him. Emperor's sucked into the mind area again, finding out dark secrets about the Hero Association. The more Phoenix Man talks, the more Child Emperor loses himself, until Saitama casually joins them in there. His frustration and aura are enough to scare Phoenix into letting them out, and Zombie Man contacts Emperor, reassuring him that there are adults that appreciate him. He makes the boys start to cry, offering to buy him a milkshake as a treat. Phoenix Man resurrects some dead monsters to use, sending cells towards Child Emperor for him to try and turn him. Saitama takes care of all the zombie monsters, and Emperor sacrifices all his remaining mech power to take down Phoenix Man, Saitama stopping him from hurting the kid in the end. Ticklebug climbs into Phoenix Man's suit and forces him out, since he refuses to leave. He turns into a lesser monster, a tiny chick man. Meanwhile, the two ninjas have also been resurrected and bump into them. Saitama punches them both out cold, and Emperor wonders why he's down there, suggesting that he brings him to the surface with Waganma. A surviving dog robot shows up and helps them leap up towards the surface, with Orochi tentacles trailing after them. Saitama destroys them before Child Emperor can notice. Waganma lies about there being no one else to save, so Terrio remains in danger. We switch to Zombie Man prior to his checking up on Child Emperor. He goes through his planned route alone, cleaning up smaller monsters. He complains to himself that Emperor sent him on a tough path, since his specialty is detective tasks, not non-stop fights. Even so, he takes down everything he sees with guns and melee weapons. Eventually, he's led to a room with the vampire monster, Pureblood, who sees himself as above them. It's a one-on-one battle to the death. Well, to the vampire's death. Zombie Man doesn't die, because he can't and hasn't so far. When Zombie Man's done, and he seems tired out, the observing monsters think it's their chance to kill him. But he's actually locking them in with him, planning to get rid of them all. As he waits to heal, lighting a cigarette, that's when he contacts Child Emperor. After his quick break, he puts his coat back on and goes to the next spot. Pig God munches away while a monster twice his size and the same eating skills taunts him. Even when he's about to strike, Pig God has the same bland expression as Saitama, which tells us how confident he is. But we jump to Atomic Samurai's disciples next. They face off with Super S and the Narinki team that's been brainwashed. They fight well, but they're also holding back as to not kill the mercenaries. When Super S steps in to control them, Amai Mask grabs her whip with his hand and takes over. He convinces them to back down when he mentions that they disgrace themselves if they got brainwashed too. Plus, it's just better for Amai Mask to work alone, for reasons. Amai Mask's fight begins and he admits that he doesn't want them to see what he's capable of, despite being something of a mystery and brutal like a monster. Amai Mask has no mercy for Super S, or even those she controls. E-Iron worries about the innocent mercenaries and tells his colleagues about what he might do. And just as he predicted, Amai Mask's about to slice all their heads off. The disciples push the Narinki squad aside and save their lives. With them out of the way, Amai Mask smashes Super S into the wall roughly. E-Iron tries to give the pop star the benefit of the doubt, but he's still full of bloodlust. Afterwards, the team wakes up and they thank the heroes. This causes Amai Mask to drop his guard momentarily, and Super S tries to pounce. She stabs his eye, but for some reason the wound is already closing back up. When she nearly spills his secret, he brutalizes her further. Then the disciples split off with the mercenaries, while the pop star continues his own way. The Narinki squad pretend to still be brainwashed, leading the disciples through the monster hideout. It works better than you'd expect, until one of the monsters plans to have a little snack. Together, they take down all the monsters in the usual violent fashion. The teamwork goes a little sideways when the mercenary leader elbows E-Iron in the face for getting too close. But it's mostly because he's worried about relying on them and accepting that they protect his life. There's no time to argue though. The monsters are everywhere with threats from below them too. The disciples drop down by cutting the floor and come across a long-haired humanoid monster called Devil Longhair. Okamatachi, the feminine disciple, feels instantly attracted to him, trying to fight it so that she could focus on taking him down. After some squabbling with her comrades, she goes for the kill, and it fails. The hair is stronger than her air blade. She even nearly gets impaled from below with hair, until Bushido warns her. Not to mention, they also need to keep Hairman from stabbing the mercenaries above them. E-Iron realizes the amount and speed of the sharp hair strands and make it impossible to follow in sight. So he closes his eyes and follows it with other senses. Standing back to back, they cover each other's weak spots, giving the monster a haircut. We switch to the mercenaries chasing down Small Fry. When they see it disappear and a monster around the corner, they sneak away, not realizing it's pig gods chowing on the monsters. After slicing and dicing with the three disciples beat up and bloody, they emerge victorious, and the long-haired devil has short hair now. Seeing as that was both his source of power and what he used to fight, it's pretty much over. They have a quick talk about the difference between heroes and mercenaries and what they can learn from each other. On Atomic Samurai's end, he slashes up lesser enemies when a big fish shows up, the machine god Child Emperor left behind. After slashing it, the core inside escapes, and he doesn't pursue it. He leaves it for someone else to clean up. Going back to Terio's escape, he's being chased by a small black monster that should not be underestimated. He's an executive after all, called Black S. Thankfully, Atomic Samurai arrives to save Terio. On the surface, the team's doing good work to catch all the strays and keeping the exits covered, until a building-destroying monster blocks the place where Child Emperor and Waganma were going to come out. With one push from Saitama though, the debris is sent flying away, and then mistaking it as Emperor's doing. Second Gar and the heroes scold Saitama for showing up to complain about the noise instead of helping with the evacuations, but he runs off and goes to finish his original goal. Child Emperor announces the success of retrieving the kidnapped child, with Zombie Man congratulating him first. That's also when Atomic Samurai mentions another kid stranded in the hideout to their surprise. Once he hears that, Child Emperor's ready to go back in with no backup. That finally gets Waganma to admit that he knew about Terio and offers a description. Meanwhile, Atomic Samurai faces Black S, underestimating the executive because of his size. Long story short, Atomic Samurai can't slice and dice his way out of this one, because Black S can just keep dividing each time to create more parts. Samurai's last resort is to cut the walls and ceilings to fall onto them. Zombie Man can feel the shaking from where he is, but doesn't have the chance to get there since he's caught by an executive too. This time, it's Homeless Emperor. Gyoro has carefully picked which executives will face which hero, and in this case, Zombie Man isn't much of a fighter, so to have someone who has endless power shooting at him keeps him from going on the offensive. All he can do is continuously heal his wounds while hoping to get close and strike, but never really getting the chance. It's a fight between ultimate regeneration and endless God bullets. Yeah, his powers came from God a month earlier. We leap into Prisoner's intense battle next, facing a group of monsters who work together against him. Nothing they use works though, and a stronger monster named Bakuma finds the group useless. So he sucks them in to absorb their powers, causing romantic heartache between a couple. Monsters can love each other too, after all. And being the hopeless romantic he thinks he is, Prisoner's ready to not only defeat the upgraded monster, but to avenge the couple and the rest who were sucked in. Thankfully, after having taken multiple types of attacks from the group before, he can now spread vibrations to anything he touches and creates the move called Vibration Dark Angel Rush. The monsters that were inhaled all fall out thankfully, and the couple is reunited. After they rush away, a new group shows up, and it's the missing prisoners turned evil. They try to beat Puri up in revenge for what he did at that prison, but they're no match for him. The executive Neon slices his chest wide open, walking away while yawning. But even after pouring out blood, Puri heals up and rushes after Neon through a sliver in the wall. Except he just swims through concrete. Neon leads prisoner back to where they were, and just him pushing back through gets all the monster prisoners destroyed. Jumping back to Pig God, digesting one of many monsters who came for him, no matter what monster shows up, they're no match for his expansive stomach. Until a giant monster with no face and just teeth and a mouth shoves Pig God into his body. Another executive has appeared, and unsurprisingly, its name is Gums. Pig God forces his way out of the monster's stomach, a gleam of determination in his eyes, and the sumo-esque fight begins. Back to prisoner, he can't seem to find where Neon is gone. Super Ally Darkshine meanwhile faces Bug God and is disappointed with his so-called insect strength. But Bug God thinks he's unbeatable since he took down Garou, unaware that the human monster is still alive. With one punch, Darkshine splits apart Bug God's tough shell, and it further feeds into his overconfidence. The mercenary disciple gang pretend to be monsters again to get further into the hideout, but they can't say what a password is when asked. Back to fighting, they slaughter most of them, but one in a hoodie gets away, unleashing an executive of another kind. Not only is it liquid, but it strikes based on instinct and hostility aimed at it. They shoot the monster, but in his dying moments, he unleashes evil natural water. They try to shut it back inside of its vault to no avail. It has fish living inside of it, and the water can even attack through walls. They're forced to hide behind thick areas, trying to find a way out of this. The mercenary leader shoots for its eyes, drawing the attack right to him. When Bushi Drill tries to cover him, the mercenary stops him from being wounded as well and gets himself hit again. The mercenary's fatally wounded, offering his name Tongara before they escape with the rest of his team. He dies while watching them run off to safety. Elsewhere, Saitama does clean up and rediscovers Rover, who he tries to treat like a regular dog. When he blasts Saitama, he punches the dog into submission. The punch shakes the hideout, alerting everyone within a large radius. By the way, Genos is still on the surface waiting. Neon thinks that he can perform a surprise attack on Saitama, but the scratch does nothing and he runs off in fear. Deep in the hideout, Tatsumaki finds Gyoro and prepares to face it. As expected of an Esper battle, it's flashy and very destructive. Plus, Tatsumaki doesn't know how to hold herself back. They taunt each other, but Tatsumaki's basically using none of her offensive power, yet still destroying Gyoro. When she squeezes Gyoro into her trademark meatball, the monster calls for Orochi's backup. He's not available though. The Monster King and his appendages are busy with Saitama instead. Saitama looks unconcerned as usual, in front of the most intimidating monster within the hideout. Who cares about the appendages and giant monsters, right? Saitama just wants his city to get some quiet. Rover pops up behind Saitama, but he's still scared from the punch earlier and dashes away. Orochi drags Saitama down further, planning to sacrifice him near the Earth's inner core. Orochi had found this altar earlier when he dug down there instinctively, thinking that it was meant for his own resurrection as the god of monsters. Saitama struggles a bit, but only with the heat of the water Orochi uses as a bath. And then he squirts the water at Orochi and kills him with the shot. Before Orochi dies, he sees the rest of the mural crumbling apart, and it reveals something only we see, a figure of what will become known as God. Unexpectedly, however, elsewhere, Super S hasn't died, waking up from Amai Mask's brutal attack. He wanted to make sure that she couldn't reveal his secret, but failed to end her as planned. She considers creating a scandal since she knows that she can use it against him, but still wants him as one of her love slaves. Regardless of his human or monster body, she goes to her supply of slaves and has only low-level ones left over, planning to whip them into shape, literally. A part of Gyoro that was doing recon in the hideout discovers Orochi has been defeated and can't figure out who did it. And right after that, it comes across King, who runs away and gets the flying device swatted by Saitama passing through. Back to Gyoro begging for its life, Tatsumaki's not worried since it's a fake body, but with self-destruction on its mind, it tries to take Tatsumaki out. The hero easily pulls what's left inside of the monster out, realizing who this is, a friend of her sister's. On her side, Fubuki feels her sister's power being exerted and worries about what dangers await them. Poor King, alone, has a fake Waganma monster try to trick him, but his engine, or rather his heart, scares the monster to death. At the same time, Fubuki bumps into Super S, allowing her a rematch. This should be more or less where Season 3 ends. It could possibly end at the altar being revealed where God's mural is, or maybe a little after that, depending on the amount of episodes we're expecting, which I assume will likely be 12, just like Season 1 and 2. But also keep in mind that some chapters go over 100 pages and could fill up an entire episode. It's a very intense and in-depth arc, absolutely worth the wait. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you liked it, please give it a like, and please subscribe for more One Punch Man content. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.